In a forgotten corner of the vast library of human knowledge, among ancient tomes and dusty manuscripts, lies a text shrouded in an aura of mystery. The Hidden Science of Breath by William Walker Atkinson. This work, which defies the passage of time, invites us to unveil ancestral secrets that lie dormant in the very breath of life. Imagine a place where mountains whisper secrets to the winds and rivers murmur forgotten stories. In that world, where the mystical intertwines with the everyday, the sages of yore discovered that breathing is not only the engine of existence, but also the key to hidden powers and unknown dimensions. Join us on this journey through the mists of time, where each inhalation and exhalation not only nourish the body, but also awaken the spirit. William Walker Atkinson, with his pen imbued with esotericism and wisdom, guides us on this journey to the heart of a science that transcends the tangible. Here, at the boundaries of the known and the unknown, practices are revealed that promise to transform the very essence of those who dare to explore them. In each page, as in each breath, a fragment of a cosmic puzzle is unveiled, inviting us to discover how breathing, an act we take for granted, can become the gateway to realization and inner power. Prepare to delve into a universe where the air you breathe is more than just a simple breath of life. It is a channel to the sublime and the eternal. Chapter 1. Prologue. Western conceptions of yogis, their philosophy, and their practices are often imprecise, largely influenced by picturesque tales depicting fakirs and beggars allegedly omnipresent on the roads and in the cities of India, self-proclaimed as yogis. However, the typical yogi is neither a neglected fanatic nor an ignorant Hindu, immobile in a rigid posture until his body stiffens, raising his arms to remain so for life, or clenching his fist to the point where the nails pierce the palm. While such individuals may exist, to the true yogi, their claim to the title seems as absurd as that of a vendor of placebos posing as a surgeon before the dean of Harvard University. It is possible to assert the existence of a well-defined yogic science, developed through experience passed down from master to disciple over the centuries, both in India and other Eastern countries. These men dedicated their time and attention to the physical, mental, and spiritual development of man. The term yog, derived from Sanskrit, meaning to unite, was eventually applied to these studies and teachings. From the same root comes the French word yugo, with a comparable meaning, though the etymological connections are numerous. It should be noted that the yogi engages in disciplined effort to govern his body and mind, an effort known as yoga, encompassing interconnected physical and spiritual elements. The science of breathing presents many points of convergence with yoga. Though it primarily focuses on the development of the physical body, it also encompasses the realm of spiritual development. Hindu yogis always placed great importance on breathing, considering it essential to achieving their goals. Although some elements of yogic teachings have been mentioned by several Western authors, the author of this work has chosen to present the fundamental principles of the science of breathing, along with some of the preferred exercises and methods of the great yogi masters, in a simple and clear manner to the West. In this book, we will try to reference the Western perspective, which complements the Eastern view in many aspects, and we will address the concepts using common language, avoiding Sanskrit terms that confuse most Western readers. In the first part of this work, we will focus on the physical aspect of the science of breathing, then address the psychic, mental, and spiritual aspects. We pride ourselves on summarizing so many yogic teachings in so few pages, without resorting to incomprehensible words and expressions. Although we fear some may consider the work too simple and perhaps not give it the attention it deserves, we know that, contrary to popular belief, the foundations of Eastern thought are easy to understand, profound, and very practical. Chapter 2. To breathe is to live. Life depends on the act of breathing. To breathe is to live, and to live is to breathe. Breathing is living, and there is no life without breathing. All living things owe their existence to their ability to breathe. All animals and plants upon birth take in air for the first time, marking the beginning of their life on earth. An old man exhales weakly, one last time, ceases to breathe, and ends his life. From the first breath in early childhood to the last sigh of old age, a long succession of continuous breaths unfolds. Breathing is the most important function of the body, as all other functions undeniably depend on it. Man can live for long periods without eating, and even a few days without drinking, but without breathing, he survives only a few minutes. However, survival is not the only thing tied to the act of breathing, as the way one breathes will influence the individual's vitality and resistance to disease. An intelligent mastery of the ability to breathe provides invaluable benefits for physical, mental, and spiritual health. Conversely, neglected breathing shortens our days, diminishes our vitality, intelligence, and well-being, and makes us more susceptible to many ailments and diseases. Man, in his natural state, like the animal and the child, breathes naturally and correctly. However, in many cases, civilization has negatively influenced our innate ability to breathe properly and naturally. The percentage of civilized men who breathe correctly is very low, resulting in sunken chests and an exponential increase in respiratory diseases. All experts, whether from the East or the West, agree that the relationship between natural breathing and health is evident, direct, and explicable. Western science demonstrates that physical health largely depends on correct breathing. Eastern instructors not only recognize that their Western counterparts are right, but also maintain that in addition to the physical benefits of normal breathing, it is possible to increase man's mental power, joy of life, self-control, mental clarity, morality, and spiritual development through the careful practice of the science of breathing. Many schools of Eastern philosophy are founded on the science of breathing, and the West can reap enormous benefits by beginning to adopt the millennial wisdom of the East regarding breathing. The theory of the East combined with the practice of the West will produce abundant results. This book will delve into the science of breathing, encompassing everything known to the Western physiologist, as well as the psychic and spiritual aspects of the subject. It goes beyond simple deep breathing, as described by Western scientists, exploring lesser-known aspects of the issue, showing how Eastern sages govern their bodies and develop their mental capacity and spiritual aspect through the meticulous practice of the science of breathing. The yogi practices exercises through which he masters his body and learns to direct a greater amount of vital energy, or prana, to any organ or part of the body, thereby strengthening the desired organ or part. He knows all the physiological effects of correct breathing, just like a Western physiologist, but he also knows that air contains more than just oxygen and nitrogen, and that the oxygenation of the blood is not the only transformation that occurs during breathing. He understands the effects of energy on the body and mind of man, and he knows that he can comprehend and utilize many of these effects. He knows that rhythmic breathing puts him in vibratory harmony with nature and promotes the development of his latent faculties. By controlling his breathing, he can heal himself and others, eliminate fear, worries, and harmful passions, and improve his personality.
The purpose of this book is to offer in a few chapters the basics of an age-old and inexhaustible wisdom, marking the beginning of a path leading to unsuspected destinations that last as long as our lives. We aim to instill in the Western mind the value of the science of breathing.
Chapter 3. Exoteric Theory of Breathing. This chapter will describe the theories of the Western scientific world regarding the functions of the respiratory organs and the role of breathing in human physiology. In the following chapters, we will present additional theories and facts confirmed by the research of the Eastern School. The Oriental accepts the results obtained by Western science and adds numerous insights that Westerners do not yet accept but will discover and present to the world in due time. We will now give a brief description of the organs of respiration. The organs of respiration include the lungs and the airways that lead to them. There are 2 lungs occupying the pleural cavity of the thorax, one on each side of the midline. They are separated from each other by the heart, the main blood vessels, and the airways. Each lung is free in all directions, except at the root, which is mainly formed by the bronchi, arteries, and veins that connect the lungs to the trachea and heart. The lungs consist of very elastic tissue, giving them a spongy texture. They are covered by a thin, tough membrane called the pleura, one side of which adheres closely to the lung and the other to the inner surface of the chest. Its function is to secrete a fluid that allows the internal sides to slide smoothly over each other during breathing. The airways include the inside of the nose, the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, and the bronchi. When we breathe, air enters through the nose, where it is warmed by contact with the mucous membrane. Then, after passing through the pharynx and larynx, it enters the trachea. The trachea then divides into many tubes called bronchi, which in turn branch out and end in new, tiny subdivisions of small air spaces. Each lung contains millions of these small air cells. It is estimated that if the air cells of the lungs were continuously extended, they would cover an area of more than 1,000 square meters. Air enters the lungs due to the action of the diaphragm, a muscle that stretches across the trunk and separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. The diaphragm functions somewhat automatically like the heart, but it can become a semi-voluntary muscle through the effort of will. When it expands, it increases the capacity of the chest and lungs, thereby lowering the internal atmospheric pressure of the lungs, allowing external air to enter the created vacuum and fill the lungs. When the expansion ceases, the chest and lungs contract, increasing the internal atmospheric pressure of the lungs and expelling the air. This mechanism of air intake and output is carried out to oxygenate the body, which is fundamental to the role of the blood. The blood is pumped by the heart through the arteries to the capillaries, which distribute it throughout the body. Then, through the veins, it returns to the heart, which sends it to the lungs to be oxygenated, and then it returns to the arterial system. Arterial blood is bright red and possesses vital qualities and properties. The venous blood is a duller blue because it returns carrying the waste products of the body. Initially like a fresh mountain stream, it returns as a muddy flow heading toward the right atrium of the heart. From the atrium, the blood flow passes through an opening to the right ventricle of the heart, which then sends it to the lungs. There the capillaries distribute it into the air cells, where the impure blood spreads into the millions of delicate air cells in the lungs. During inhalation, the oxygen in the air comes into contact with the impure blood through the capillaries, designed so that their walls are not thick enough to prevent blood from passing through, but thin enough to allow oxygen to penetrate. When oxygen comes into contact with the blood, it oxygenates it and releases carbon dioxide generated by the waste and toxic substances collected from all parts of the body. The purified and oxygenated blood then returns to the heart once again, dark red and bright, charged with vital properties and qualities. When it reaches the left atrium, it passes into the left ventricle, from which it circulates again through the arteries, distributing oxygen to all parts of the body. Each day, about 177,000 liters of blood pass through the capillaries of the lungs, with blood cells aligned in a single file, exposing their sides to the oxygen in the air. Well-exposed arterial blood contains about 25% free oxygen. One truly feels immense admiration and wonder at the infinite marvel of nature. It is then evident that if a sufficient amount of fresh air does not reach the lungs, the impure flow of venous blood cannot be purified, and the body remains impure and devitalized. It is also clear that without sufficient inhalation of air, the blood cannot continue its work, and the undernourished body falls ill or remains in a fragile state of health. Even if it is not the cause of a particular disease, poor breathing can manifest as a poor complexion, while proper breathing and thus normal circulation gives a robust, bright, and full of vitality complexion. If the blood is not completely purified by the regenerating process of the lungs, it returns to the arteries without having been rid of its impurities, that is, without the impurities collected on its return journey having been eliminated. If these impurities return to the system, they will manifest as some form of blood disease or any other disease resulting from the abnormal functioning of an undernourished organ. When the blood is properly exposed to the air in the lungs, its impurities are eliminated and it absorbs oxygen, which it then transports to all parts of the body. As we have seen, through the capillaries, the blood reaches every cell, tissue, muscle, and organ, vitalizing and strengthening them, replacing worn-out cells and tissues with new materials that nature transforms for its use. It should also be remembered that the entire body receives nutrition from assimilated food. Therefore, if assimilation is imperfect, nutrition will always be incomplete, and the organism will weaken. Since the digestive function materially depends on a certain oxygenation of the food, which is only possible when oxygen comes into contact with the food, it is not surprising that weak lungs are so frequently associated with poor digestion. Every particle of food or drink must be oxygenated for it to release its nutritional characteristics and for the body's waste to have the necessary conditions to be eliminated from the system. Insufficient oxygen means imperfect nutrition, elimination, and health. Those who breathe well are much less likely to catch colds than those who breathe inadequately, and they generally have an abundance of well-oxygenated blood, enabling them to resist temperature changes. Besides the important processes already mentioned, the act of breathing exercises the internal organs and muscles. Western authors on the subject generally do not tend to dwell on this fact, although they are aware of it, while Easterners fully appreciate its value. In incomplete respiration, not all lung cells function, resulting in a loss of lung capacity, with the system suffering proportionally from oxygen deprivation. Animals naturally breathe in their natural state, and it is indisputable that humans have done the same. However, the lifestyle adopted by civilized humans distances them from natural breathing. Hence, we must rediscover how to breathe according to nature's design. Chapter 4. Esoteric Theory of Respiration. The science of respiration presents two aspects, an esoteric or internal aspect and an exoteric or external aspect. The physiological aspect we briefly described can be considered the external or exoteric part of the issue, while the aspect we explore here is the esoteric or internal aspect. In all regions of the world, but particularly in Eastern countries, some masters teach a limited number of disciples, usually in secret, that there exists in the air a substance or principle from which all activity, vitality, and life derive. The names given to this substance vary, as do the assumptions stemming from its existence, but the fundamental principle is the same in all occult teachings and philosophies, and for centuries it has been part of the teachings of Eastern yogis. In this book, we designate this principle by the term prana, a Sanskrit word meaning absolute energy or fundamental energy. Many occultists maintain that prana, as defined by yogis, is the universal principle of energy or force, and that all energy or force stems from prana, or rather, is a mode of its manifestation. In this book, we limit ourselves to considering prana as the principle of manifested energy in all forms of life, distinguishing them from inanimate forms. We can consider it as the active principle of life present in all forms, from the simplest amoeba to humans, from the most rudimentary plant life to higher animal life. Prana pervades everything and is present everywhere, as it exists in all animate forms. Just as occult philosophy teaches that life is present in every atom, we can infer that prana is everywhere and in all things, and that the apparent absence of life in some is merely a lesser degree of manifestation of life's symptomatology. It should not be confused with the ego, the particle of the divine spirit that constitutes the core of individualization, around which matter and energy aggregate to form an individual, a particular manifestation of life. When the principle of individualization leaves a body, the remaining atoms, even when disintegrated, carry enough prana to maintain their vitality and be capable of forming new combinations of matter. The unused prana then returns to its place of origin. Therefore, prana is the name we give to a universal principle, the essence of all movement, force, or energy, which somehow produces the form of activity accompanying life. This grand principle exists in all forms of matter, but should not be confused with matter itself. It is in the air, but it is not the air, nor even the chemical bodies composing it in the atmosphere. Animals and plants breathe it with the air, absorbing prana in the process, but it is not oxygen. Humans, by inhaling, introduce prana into their bodies along with oxygen, but it is not oxygen. Prana is a mysterious, powerful principle contained within the air, but it is not the air itself. In Hebrew, the phrase nemet ruach chayim means the breath of the spirit of life. The word nemet means ordinary breathing, air. Chayim means life, and the word ruach means spirit. According to occultists, this is the same principle we call prana in this book. Prana is found in atmospheric air, but also where air cannot reach. We constantly inhale air, and with it, the prana from the air, which we appropriate for our use. Prana exists in the air in regular quantity, and when the air is pure, we can extract it from this source more easily than any other. In ordinary breathing, we absorb and extract a normal amount of prana. However, with regulated breathing techniques, often called yogic breathing, we are able to extract a larger amount which we can use very effectively. We can store it. Many powers attributed to advanced occultists largely stem from knowledge of this fact and the intelligent use of the extraordinary force from this accumulation. Yogis know they can establish a relationship with the reservoir of prana and dispose of it as needed. The enhancement resulting from these uses of breathing is not only physical, as the brain can also receive increased energy from the same source, thereby improving its performance and even developing psychic powers. An individual possessing the ability to store prana, consciously or unconsciously, often radiates vitality and strength, which is clearly perceptible to those around them. Such an individual can impart their strength to others, thereby increasing their vitality and health. Magnetic healing occurs in this manner, even if many magnetizers do not know the origin of their power. Western scientists, generally unable to detect the existence of prana with scientific instruments, have often rejected Eastern theory, unable to explain this principle. However, they recognize that the air in certain places possesses beneficial properties, and doctors often send patients to these locations in hopes of restoring their health. Blood assimilates oxygen from the air and utilizes it, just as the nervous system assimilates prana from the air and uses it for itself. Similar to how oxygenated blood circulates throughout the body and manages its construction and repair, prana circulates through all parts of the nervous system, enhancing its vitality. Just as oxygen in the blood is used according to the body's needs, the supply of prana is consumed by our thoughts, desires, actions, emotions, etc. As a result, it is constantly necessary to replenish it in the physiological organism. Each thought, act of will, and muscular movement consumes a certain amount of force, which is actually a mode of prana. To move a muscle, the brain sends a signal through the nerves, and the muscle moves, resulting in a consumption of prana proportional to the effort exerted. Considering that the majority of prana acquired by humans comes from inhaled air, we can easily appreciate the enormous importance of proper breathing. Chapter 5. The Nervous System. First, note that Western scientific theories regarding respiration are limited to the processes of inhalation and exhalation, as well as their utilization in the circulatory system, while yogic theory also considers the absorption of prana and its manifestation through the channels of the nervous system. Let's now focus on the nervous system. The human nervous system is divided into two major subsystems, the cerebrospinal system and the sympathetic system. The cerebrospinal system includes the part of the nervous system contained within the skull and spinal column, namely the brain with its cerebellum, as well as the spinal cord and the nerves emerging from it. This system governs voluntary, sensory, and other functions of animal life. The sympathetic system encompasses the part of the nervous system mainly located in the thoracic, abdominal, and pelvic cavities, spreading into the internal organs, controlling involuntary processes such as growth or nutrition. The senses, sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch, are dependent on the cerebrospinal system, which serves as the interface with the external world. This system can be likened to a telegraphic installation, where the brain is the central office, and the spinal cord and nerves are the cables and wires closely connected to it. The brain is a mass of nervous tissue consisting of three parts: the cerebrum, occupying the anterior, middle, and posterior parts of the skull, the cerebellum located in the lower and posterior part of the skull, and the medulla oblongata, which forms the expanded beginning of the spinal cord and is situated in the nape of the neck, in front of the cerebellum. The brain is the organ manifested in intellectual activity. The cerebellum directs movements of voluntary muscles. The medulla oblongata is the upper part of the spinal cord, and from it and the brain, cranial nerves extend to various parts of the head, sensory organs, the respiratory apparatus, as well as certain organs of the thorax and abdomen. The spinal cord occupies the internal canal of the vertebral column and is a long mass of nervous substance branching into nerves that extend to all parts of the body. The spinal cord resembles a long telegraphic cable, and the nerves are the wires with the main cable. The sympathetic nervous system consists of a double chain of ganglia parallel to the vertebral column and other ganglia located in the head. Both contain nerve cells and are interconnected by nerve filaments, as well as with the cerebrospinal system through motor and sensory nerves. From these ganglia, numerous fibers extend to organs of the body, blood vessels, etc. At various points, nerves meet and form what is known as plexuses. The sympathetic system regulates involuntary processes such as circulation, respiration, or digestion. Western science calls the nerve force the force transmitted by the brain to all parts of the body through the nerves. Eastern traditions believe this to be a manifestation of prana, with characteristics similar to electrical energy. Without this nerve force, the heart would not beat, blood would not circulate, lungs would not breathe, and various organs would cease to function. Ultimately, without it, the body's machinery would be paralyzed. Furthermore, the brain cannot think without prana. Moreover, yogic teachings go beyond Western science regarding an important feature of the nervous system, the solar plexus. The solar plexus is located in the epigastric region behind the stomach, on either side of the spinal column. It consists of white and gray cerebral matter, similar to that found in the human brain. For Western science, it is simply one of many aggregations of sympathetic nerves and ganglia found throughout the body. However, yogic science teaches that this solar plexus is actually a very important part of the nervous system, constituting a kind of brain that plays a fundamental role in human economy. Western science seems to be gradually approaching recognition of this truth, known to Eastern yogis for many centuries. Some modern Western authors are beginning to acknowledge that the solar plexus plays a more significant role than traditionally attributed, even dubbing it the abdominal brain to underscore its importance. As a central repository of prana, the solar plexus is aptly named as it radiates strength and energy throughout the body, including to the brain. Due to its quality as a pranic reserve, Western science will eventually recognize the true function of the solar plexus and delve into its study to discover the wonders it holds. Chapter 6. Nasal breathing versus mouth breathing. The first lesson in yogic science of breathing is learning to breathe through the nose and eliminating the habit of mouth breathing. The respiratory system of humans is designed to allow air intake through both the mouth and the nostrils, but the method followed is of paramount importance as it greatly influences health, strength, or conversely, illness and weakness. The normal method of breathing involves using the nostrils, yet it is surprising how little this simple truth is known among civilized peoples. Individuals from all walks of life are accustomed to breathing through the mouth and allow their children to follow suit. Many of the diseases to which civilized man is exposed stem from the habit of mouth breathing. Children who breathe in this manner grow up with diminished vitality and remain marked by this unhealthy habit for the rest of their lives. Among savages, mothers are much more natural in this regard, as they are evidently guided by instinct. Intuitively, they recognize that the nostrils are the proper pathways for conducting air to the lungs. Therefore, they encourage their children to close their lips and breathe through the nose. Many contagious diseases are contracted due to the habit of mouth breathing, and numerous cases of colds and minor respiratory ailments have the same origin. Some individuals keep their mouths closed during the day to conceal this habit, but they breathe through the mouth at night, thus continuing to oxygenate their bodies incorrectly. Extensive scientific experiments have shown that people who breathe through their mouths during sleep are more likely to contract contagious diseases than those who correctly breathe through the nose. The importance of nasal breathing lies in the fact that the only protective structures of the respiratory organs are the nostrils. When you breathe through the mouth, there is nothing to filter the air on its way to your lungs, meaning that dust or other foreign matter can enter unimpeded. Furthermore, this improper breathing allows cold air to reach the lungs, damaging them. Inflammation of the respiratory organs often results from inhaling cold air through the mouth. The other essential point to note is that the structure of the nostrils and nasal passages shows nature's meticulous foresight. The nostrils are narrow channels that contain numerous hairs meant to act as filters, stopping impurities from the air which are then expelled during exhalation. Additionally, the nostrils have a warm mucous membrane that heats the inhaled air, preventing cold air from harming the throat or lungs. In contrast, air inhaled through the mouth bypasses this filtering and warming process. No animal except humans sleeps with an open mouth or breathes through the mouth. Even in less civilized cultures, nasal breathing is the norm. The nostrils filter, purify, and refine the air before it reaches the delicate organs of the throat and lungs. Therefore, it is crucial to remember that the mouth provides no protection to the respiratory organs, while the nostrils play a crucial role in this regard. Just as no one would consider eating through the nose, neither should breathing through the mouth be entertained. Another consequence of mouth breathing is that the nasal passages, due to their relative inactivity, do not stay clean or continuously renew themselves, making them susceptible to local diseases. Similar to how abandoned pathways quickly fill with weeds, nasal passages that do not function properly accumulate impurities and harmful substances. It is unlikely that those who habitually breathe through their nose suffer from discomfort caused by the buildup of mucus and other substances in the nasal passages. Even in the East, special techniques have been developed to keep the nasal passages clean and free of impurities. A preferred method in the East involves dipping the face in a container of water, sucking in a little water through the nose, passing it down the throat, and spitting it out through the mouth. Of course, this method requires considerable practice. Another effective practice involves standing in front of an open window and breathing freely while closing one nostril with the index or thumb, inhaling through the open nostril and repeating this process several times alternating with the other nostril. This practice often alleviates nasal congestion. The issue of nasal breathing is of great importance, not only for health reasons, but also because it is a prerequisite for the breathing exercises we will discuss later, and is also one of the fundamental principles of yogic breathing science. No one who wishes to delve into the mysteries of breathing science can neglect this aspect of nasal breathing. Chapter 7. The 4 Methods of Breathing. Let's begin with the mechanism of respiratory movements. The mechanism of breathing manifests in 2 acts. 1. The elastic movements of the lungs. 2. The activities of the walls and the bottom of the thoracic cavity where the lungs are located. The thoracic cage is the part of the trunk situated between the neck and the abdomen. It forms a cavity mainly occupied by the heart and lungs. It is bounded by the spine, ribs, sternum, and diaphragm. It is commonly called the chest, and is a sort of completely closed box in the shape of an inverted cone with the apex upwards. The posterior part is formed by the spine, the anterior part by the sternum, and the sides by the ribs. Man has 24 ribs, 12 on each side of the spine, from which the 7 first pairs are called true ribs because they are directly connected to the sternum. The following 5 pairs are called floating ribs because they are not attached like the previous ones. The first 2 pairs of these upper floating ribs are fixed by cartilages to the other ribs, while the others are free on their anterior face. Between the ribs are 2 superficial muscular layers called intercostal muscles. The diaphragm, which we have already spoken of, separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. During the act of inspiration or inhalation, the muscles dilate the lungs and create a vacuum in which the air is precipitated due to the pressure difference, as we have already explained. The entire process of respiration depends on these muscles, the intercostal and the diaphragm, which we can conveniently call the respiratory muscles. Yogis classify breathing into high breathing, medium breathing, low breathing, and complete breathing. We will describe the first three methods, and we will go into more detail on the fourth, on which is mainly based the science of breathing. High breathing. This breathing method is known in the West as clavicular breathing. It involves lifting the ribs, clavicles, and shoulders while contracting the abdomen, causing its contents to collide with the rising diaphragm. This method primarily affects the upper and lower parts of the chest and lungs, with very little air entering. The result with this method is highly inadequate despite maximal effort. High breathing is arguably the worst breathing method. It is the most common way of breathing in the West. Many vocal organ diseases are attributed to this inefficient breathing method, and the strain placed on such delicate organs leads to multiple health disorders. Many people who practice this method also breathe through their mouth, which further exacerbates issues. For those skeptical of what we've said about this form of breathing, we advise you to perform the following experiment. Completely empty your lungs, then stand with your hands by your sides, lift your shoulders and clavicles, and inhale. You will find that the amount of air you inhale is much less than normal. Next, repeat the inhalation, but after lowering the shoulders and clavicles, you will then receive instruction on extremely effective breathing. Medium breathing. This breathing method is known in the West as intercostal breathing, and although it is less deficient than high breathing, it is still quite imperfect. In medium breathing, the diaphragm rises, the abdomen contracts, the ribs lift slightly, and the chest partially expands. This type of breathing is widespread, but it is actually only a slightly better improvement over high breathing. Low breathing. This method is much better than the previous two and is known in the West as abdominal breathing, deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, etc. Western scientists have already understood the benefits of this form of breathing and have encouraged many people to adopt it instead of the harmful methods mentioned earlier. Many of these individuals have benefited from the ancient Eastern knowledge, as classes have been given to teach the low breathing method, as if it were something new invented by those giving these classes. However, those who have abandoned the old methods of high and medium breathing have certainly not wasted their money. However, the Eastern yogi has known for centuries that there is an even better method, and some Western authors know it as well. The weakness of all breathing methods, except for complete breathing, lies in the fact that none of them completely fill the lungs with air. Even in the best cases, such as with low breathing, only a considerable portion of the lung space is utilized. High breathing only fills the upper part of the lungs, medium breathing fills the upper and a small portion of the middle part, and low breathing fills the lower and middle parts. It is clear that a method that completely fills the lung space will be of great value, as it will allow those who use it to inhale a greater amount of oxygen and store a large amount of prana. Complete breathing. According to Eastern sages, complete breathing is the best-known breathing method. Yogi complete breathing combines all the advantages of high, medium, and low breathing methods, but without any of their drawbacks. It activates the entire respiratory system, every part of the lungs and every respiratory muscle. The entire organism is activated by this breathing method, and it is the way to achieve the greatest benefit with the least effort. In this method, every part of the mechanism performs its functions and natural work. An essential feature of this method is that respiratory muscles are fully engaged, whereas in other breathing methods, only a portion of them is used. In complete breathing, notably, the intercostal muscles work actively, increasing the space where the lungs can expand and providing sufficient support to the organs when needed. This method also leverages the principle of leverage, where certain muscles firmly hold the lower ribs in position while others bend them outward. Thus, the diaphragm is fully utilized in this method and is capable of properly fulfilling its functions and providing optimal service in rib movement. The intercostal muscles also lift and push the upper ribs outward, thereby increasing the capacity of the upper chest part. Examining the special characteristics of the aforementioned breathing methods, it is easy to see that complete breathing gathers all the benefits of the other three methods, as well as those resulting from the combined action of the upper and middle parts of the chest. In the next chapter, we will delve into the method of complete breathing, provide instructions, and present the necessary exercises for this unmatched method of breathing. Chapter 8. How to practice yogi complete breathing. One who wishes to uncover the secrets of complete breathing must not settle for partial learning, but must work diligently until it becomes their natural breathing method. This requires work, time, and patience, because without these, nothing significant can be accomplished in breathing or any other area of life. The path to mastering the science of breathing is not easy, and the student must be prepared to work earnestly. However, it is good to remember that the results obtained are extraordinary and fully reward the efforts made. We say this to highlight the importance and necessity of taking this fundamental method of breathing seriously from the outset. We repeat, if one starts correctly, the results will be beneficial, but if the basics are neglected, the whole structure will collapse. It is perhaps preferable to begin teaching the practice of yogic complete breathing by affirming that it is nothing forced or abnormal. On the contrary, it is a return to the principles of nature. Uncivilized humans and children breathe in this manner when they are in good health. It is good to note from the outset that complete breathing does not necessarily consist of completely filling the lungs with each inhalation. By using the method of complete breathing, one can inhale the usual amount of air and distribute it throughout all parts of the lungs. However, it is recommended to practice several times a day a series of complete breaths whenever the opportunity arises to keep the body well oxygenated. The following exercise, divided into 3 parts, will give you a first idea of what complete breathing is and how it works. To begin, stand or sit in an upright position, relaxed, and breathe through the nostrils. Then inhale deeply, first filling the lower part of the lungs. This is achieved using the diaphragm, which exerts slight pressure on the abdominal organs as it descends, pushing the front wall of the abdomen outward. Next, the middle region of the lungs fills by lifting the lower ribs, sternum, and chest. Finally, the upper part of the lungs fills by gently raising the chest with the upper ribs. The lower part of the abdomen will contract slightly to support the filling of the upper part of the lungs. It may seem that this movement consists of 3 distinct and successive times. However, inhalation should be continuous, and the entire thoracic cavity, from the diaphragm to the top of the chest in the clavicular region, should uniformly expand with a smooth movement. Sharp inhalations should not be performed, and regular continuous action should be achieved. Practice will soon master the tendency to divide inhalation into 3 times and result in a continuous and uniform breathing. In a short time, inhalation can be completed in a few seconds. Once inhalation is completed, hold the breath for a few seconds, then exhale slowly, keeping the chest firm, gently drawing in the abdomen, and gradually lifting it as the air is expelled completely from the lungs. Once the air is completely expelled, relax the chest and abdomen. Once you have mastered this exercise, the movement will execute automatically. You will notice that through this breathing method, all organs of the respiratory system come into action, and all parts of the lungs function, including the farthest air cells. The thoracic cavity expands firmly and elastically, allowing for uniform, continuous, and complete breathing. It is advisable to practice this exercise in front of a mirror, with your hand on the abdomen, to observe the movements, which will help you better understand the mechanism of complete breathing. At the end of inhalation, it is advised to raise the shoulders several times, which also lifts the clavicles and allows air to pass freely into the small upper lobe of the right lung, where tuberculosis sometimes manifests. Initially, adopting the complete breathing system may be somewhat challenging, but difficulties will be overcome with some practice, and you will never voluntarily revert to old methods. Chapter 9. Physiological effects of complete breathing. It is almost impossible to overestimate the benefits of this practice. Practicing complete breathing wards off the possibility of contracting serious lung conditions, including bronchitis. Lack of oxygenation leaves us apathetic and vulnerable to germs, bacteria, and viruses, so good breathing ensures better overall health and, consequently, a lower likelihood of contracting any type of illness. One who practices this special breathing will attain a broad and well-developed chest. Many flu-like conditions can be avoided by practicing a few breaths daily, as indicated. When feeling cold, Simply breathing deeply for a few minutes warms you up. Almost all colds can be cured through complete breathing and partial fasting for a day. The quality of blood largely depends on its oxygenation rate, and if oxygenation is incomplete, blood becomes impoverished and laden with all sorts of impurities. The entire system suffers due to lack of nourishment and is poisoned by waste products that are not eliminated, as blood irrigates, oxygenates, and nourishes the whole body. It is evident that impure blood will have a detrimental effect on the system. Furthermore, digestion heavily depends on blood oxygenation, as food must absorb oxygen from the blood before it can be digested and assimilated. Hence, it is easy to understand how defective breathing can affect digestion and assimilation. When assimilation is not normal, the system becomes undernourished, appetite diminishes, bodily vigor decreases, strength wanes, and one feels weak, all due to defective breathing. Even the nervous system suffers from incomplete breathing, as nerves become weak and insufficient to generate, store, and transmit nerve currents when blood does not vigorously nourish them. Moreover, nerve currents themselves and the strength emanating from them decrease due to poor breathing. However, this latter aspect belongs to another topic we will address later. For now, let us focus on the impact on the nervous system when breathing is inadequate. The effect of the genital organs on overall health is well known. It is sufficiently established that we need not dwell on the subject. Let us simply say that if the genital organs are weakened, the entire system weakens. Complete breathing produces a rhythm that follows a plan of nature to maintain the genital organs in good working order. Good breathing strengthens and revitalizes reproductive functions through sympathetic and reflex action, toning and strengthening the entire physiological system. This does not necessarily mean that lower sexual instincts must be aroused, as yogis have always advocated continence and chastity, and they have learned to master their passions. Control over sexuality does not mean sexual weakness. Yogi teachings indicate that the person who masters their faculties from sexuality will have greater willpower to control themselves. Ultimately, whether one wishes to adopt yogi theories of continence and chastity or not, it will be found that complete breathing revitalizes and normalizes the sexuality of anyone who adopts it. Lascivious individuals will find that the norm actually means a decrease rather than an increase in desire, while those who are weakened will experience relief from the depression they had previously felt. To avoid any misunderstanding of this aspect, let us clarify that the yogi ideal is to have a robust and strong body in all its parts, governed by a powerful will, animated by noble aspirations. In the practice of the breathing system we are discussing here, the diaphragm contracts during inhalation, exerting gentle pressure on the liver, stomach, and other organs, and combined with the lung rhythm, it acts as a gentle massage on these organs, stimulating their activity and normal functioning. Each inhalation contributes to this internal exercise and promotes normal circulation in the organs of nutrition and elimination. In high and middle respirations, the organs do not benefit from this beneficial internal message. If the Western world places great emphasis on physical culture, which is very wise, it should not be forgotten that not everything boils down to exercising external muscles. Internal organs also need exercise, and nature's plan for this is complete breathing. The diaphragm is the main instrument of this plan, as its rhythmic action vibrates the organs of nutrition and elimination, stimulating them with a gentle massage, and each inhalation increases blood circulation within them, toning the whole system. Any organ or part of the body that is not exercised slowly atrophies, ceases to function healthily, and diseases develop. Even without considering the millennia-old teachings of the East from a purely physiological standpoint, the method of complete breathing is fundamental for anyone wishing to enjoy good health and preserve it. Many spend fortunes searching for complicated methods and expensive treatments to achieve this goal. However, there is a simple solution within reach of everyone, the method of complete breathing. Unfortunately, few truly practice it. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone of the Temple of Health. Chapter 10. Extracts from Yogi Teachings. We will now explore 3 breathing techniques widely used by sages of the East. First, we will examine the purifying breath, which yogis attribute to their great lung capacity. Next, we will look at an exercise for revitalizing nerves, passed down through generations by yogis for centuries. Finally, we will conclude the chapter with vocal breathing, which bestows upon practitioners a melodious, vibrant, and beautiful voice. The purifying breath is an exercise used for centuries by Eastern sages to ventilate and cleanse the lungs. Yogis often employ this exercise to conclude any respiratory practice. We also recommend practicing the purifying breath as it cleanses and revitalizes the lungs, stimulates cells, and tones respiratory organs. Moreover, it contributes to maintaining overall good health and relaxes the entire system when it is tense. Speakers and singers who use their voice extensively in their profession should pay particular attention to this breathing method, as it can help maintain a healthy and well-rested respiratory system. The purifying breath consists of the following steps. Inhale a complete breath. Hold the breath for a few seconds. Form your lips as if preparing to whistle, ensuring not to puff out your cheeks. Then forcefully exhale a little air through the opening of the lips. Then hold the remaining stored air for a moment and release it in short expulsions until none is left in the body. It is important to remember that the air should be expelled with some force. This breath is very invigorating when tired, and a little practice will convince skeptics of its effectiveness. As mentioned, it is best to practice this exercise at the end of any breathing exercise. It is important to understand and practice it until you can do it easily and naturally. The nerve revitalizing breath is one of the most powerful exercises for stimulating and strengthening nerves, toning the nervous system, and developing their energy and vitality. This exercise stimulates important nerve centers that in turn influence the entire system and increase its energy, transmitting greater nerve flow throughout the body. The nerve revitalizing breath consists of the following steps. Stand with the body straight, inhale a complete breath and hold it. Extend your arms forward but without excessive tension, just with the necessary force to keep them in that position. Slowly bring your hands back to the shoulders, gradually contracting the muscles and conveying tension so that your fists are firmly clenched when they reach the shoulders. While keeping the muscles tense, quickly bring the fists back to the previous position. Vigorously exhale through the mouth each time you complete these steps. Repeat this movement several times. The vocal breath is a specific exercise that gives yogis an admirable, strong, clear, and powerful voice. It consists of the following steps. Inhale a complete breath very slowly through the nostrils for as long as possible. Hold the inhalation for a few seconds. Vigorously exhale through the mouth. It is important to give the lungs a rest using the purifying breath. It is noteworthy that experience teaches us that the tone, quality, and power of the voice depend not only on the vocal organs of the throat and respiratory organs, but also on the facial muscles. There are men with broad chests whose voices are gentle, while others with narrow chests emit tones of surprising strength and quality. Here's an interesting experiment. Stand in front of a mirror with your lips in a whistling position, whistle, and then observe the shape of your mouth and the overall expression of your face. Then, without changing the position of your lips or face, sing a few notes and you will notice how vibrant, resonant, and clear your voice tone becomes. Chapter 11. 7 Yogi Exercises for Development. The following 7 exercises are used to strengthen the lungs, muscles, ligaments, lung alveoli, etc. They are very simple and incredibly effective. All these exercises stem from the ancient teachings of the East. Breath retention is a crucial exercise for strengthening and developing respiratory and pulmonary muscles. Regular practice will help expand the chest. Yogis have observed that occasional breath retention after a full inhalation is very beneficial for respiratory organs, nutrition organs, the nervous system, as well as the circulatory system and blood. It promotes the purification of remaining air in the lungs from previous inhalations, thereby oxygenating the blood more completely. Moreover, the held breath gathers all waste products, which are then expelled vigorously during exhalation, leaving the lungs clean, much like an effective purgative cleanses the intestines. Yogis recommend this exercise for stomach, liver, and blood disorders, asserting its usefulness in treating bad breath. often originating from poorly ventilated lungs. To practice it, follow these steps. Stand upright with the body straight. Inhale deeply with a complete breath. Hold the breath for as long as possible without strain. Exhale vigorously through the mouth. It may be challenging to hold the breath initially, but with practice, retention will become easier and more sustainable. You can use a watch to measure your progress. Stimulation of lung cells aims to activate lung alveoli. Beginners should practice this exercise very gradually, as it may cause slight dizziness at first. If you feel dizzy while practicing, it's best to pause the exercise and walk slowly to overcome the dizziness. To perform this exercise, follow these steps. Stand upright with the body straight and hands at the sides. Inhale slowly and progressively. During inhalation, gently tap your chest with your fingertips, running them along its entire length. When your lungs are full, hold the breath and tap your chest with the palms of your hands. Once these steps are completed, perform the purifying breath. Rib expansion is an exercise aimed at occasionally exercising the ribs to maintain their elasticity. The Western habit of standing or sitting incorrectly can reduce rib elasticity. To perform this exercise, follow these steps. Stand upright with the body straight, placing your hands on both sides of the body as close as possible to the ribs, with thumbs pointing backward. Palms of the hands on the sides of the chest and fingers on the pectorals. Second exercise, thoracic expansion. Due to the forward and downward tilt of the body that most sedentary jobs force upon us, the chest tends to shrink and lose its vigor. This exercise is excellent for restoring natural conditions and achieving normal and healthy thoracic expansion. Stand upright with the body straight. Inhale deeply with a complete breath. Hold the breath. Extend the arms forward with fists clenched up to shoulder level. Vigorously extend the fists outward until they form a straight line with the shoulders. Exhale vigorously through the mouth. After the exercise, perform the purifying breath. It's essential to practice this exercise moderately, especially for beginners. Walking exercise. This exercise is extremely comprehensive as it integrates overall muscle toning with the benefits of complete breathing. Walk at a gentle pace, head held high, chin slightly tucked, and shoulders back. Inhale deeply with a complete breath, mentally counting to 8, one number per step, ensuring that the inhalation lasts the time it takes to walk 8 steps. Then exhale slowly through the nostrils, counting to 8, one number per step. Rest between breaths while continuing to walk, counting to 8, one number per step. Repeat the exercise until you feel fatigue, then rest for a few minutes and resume the exercise. Next, perform the purifying breath. Another equally effective version of this exercise involves practicing it while holding the breath and counting 1, 2, 3, one number per step, between steps 2 and 3. This exercise can be done several times a day. Morning exercise. This exercise is extraordinary for starting the day by activating and loosening the lower muscles and respiratory system. Stand upright with the body straight, head held high, eyes looking forward, shoulders back, knees locked, and hands at the sides. Slowly raise the body onto tiptoes while inhaling deeply and vigorously. Hold the breath for a moment while maintaining the position. Slowly lower back to the starting position while exhaling slowly through the nostrils at the same time. Finish the exercise with the purifying breath. This exercise can be done without actually using a stick. Simply clench the fists firmly. Individuals with circulatory problems should practice this exercise daily, combined with the purifying breath. The 6th and 7th exercises can be performed together, one after the other, each morning. Chapter 12. 7 additional exercises. In this chapter, we will describe 7 other breathing exercises from the East, each different and with varied goals. Each individual should determine which of these exercises best suits their specific needs. Although termed minor exercises, it should not be thought that they are unimportant. Indeed, while less general than those already explained, these exercises can prove highly beneficial. To emphasize the importance of these exercises, it should be noted that in the East it is not uncommon to find books dedicated exclusively to these 7 exercises. Exercise number 1. Stand with hands down by the sides. Inhale deeply with a complete breath. Slowly raise the arms while keeping them firm until they meet above the head. Hold your breath for a moment. Slowly lower the hands to the sides while exhaling gently. Finish the exercise by practicing the purifying breath. Exercise number 2. Stand with arms extended forward. Inhale deeply with a complete breath and hold it. Slowly bring the arms horizontally backward as far as possible. Slowly return to the starting position, repeating these movements while holding the breath. Exhale vigorously through the mouth. Finish the exercise by practicing the purifying breath. Exercise number 3. Stand with arms extended forward. Inhale deeply with a complete breath. Slowly and circularly move the arms backward several times, alternating the movement like the blades of a windmill while holding the breath. Exhale vigorously through the mouth. Finish the exercise by practicing the purifying breath. Exercise number 4. Lie on your stomach, hands at your sides, palms lightly open on the floor. Inhale deeply with a complete breath and hold it. Keeping your body rigid, lift yourself up by pressing on your arms until all the weight of your body rests on your hands and toes, as if you were crawling. Return to the starting position several times. Exhale vigorously through the mouth. Finish the exercise by practicing the purifying breath. Exercise number 5. Stand with the palms of your hands pressed against a wall at shoulder height. Inhale deeply with a complete breath and hold it. Bring your chest closer to the wall, resting the weight of your body on the palms of your hands. Move your body away from the wall using the strength of your arms while holding the breath. Exhale vigorously through the mouth. Finish the exercise by practicing the purifying breath. Exercise number 6.
Stand with hands on your waist, elbows outward.
Inhale deeply with a complete breath and hold it. Keep your legs and hips firm. Lean your torso forward as if bowing, while exhaling slowly. Return to the starting position and take a complete breath. Lean your torso to the right while exhaling slowly. Return to the starting position with a complete breath. Lean your torso to the left while exhaling slowly. Return to the starting position with a complete breath. Finish the exercise by practicing the purifying breath. Exercise number 7. Stand or sit upright. Take a complete breath, but instead of doing it continuously, inhale intermittently in short, rapid, frequent inspirations, as if inhaling aromatic salts or harmony and not wanting to absorb an excessive amount. Hold the breath for a few seconds. Exhale through the nostrils in a long exhalation. Finish the exercise by practicing the purifying breath. Chapter 13. Vibration and Rhythmic Breathing. The essence of rhythmic breathing lies in the mental image of rhythm. Those familiar with music will understand the concept of time. For those who are not, they can grasp the idea of rhythm by observing the march of a regiment, where each soldier marches to the beat of their own heart at a determined tempo. Heartbeats vary slightly from person to person, and the beat unit of each individual should be their rhythmic module in rhythmic breathing. To know the normal rhythm of one's own heart, simply place fingers on the pulse, relax, and count to 6 twice until the rhythm is set in the mind. With a little practice, one will easily become aware of their own rhythm. Beginners typically breathe for 6 beats, but with practice they can increase this number. The fundamental rule of rhythmic breathing is that the units of inhalation and exhalation must be equal to each other, while those of retention should be half the number used for inhalation and exhalation. The exercise of rhythmic breathing described below must be mastered completely, as it forms the basis of many other exercises we will describe later. Seated upright in a comfortable position. Sit upright in a comfortable position so that the chest, neck, and head are as close to a straight line as possible, shoulders back, and hands resting on the knees.
Inhale slowly with a complete breath, counting to 6 beats.
Hold the air in the lungs, counting to 3 beats. Exhale slowly through the nose, counting to 6 beats. Count to 3 beats before resuming inhalation. Repeat the exercise several times. Once rhythmic breathing is complete, practice the purifying breath that will rest and cleanse the lungs. With practice, you can increase the duration of inhalations and exhalations up to 15 beats. It's important to remember that the retention time between breaths should be half the time of inhalation and exhalation. Do not rush to increase the duration of breathing, as the body must gradually adjust. The key lies in acquiring the rhythm, which is more important than the duration of breathing. After a few weeks of practice, the body will feel like a perfectly tuned instrument. This exercise requires practice and perseverance, but the satisfaction of seeing progress is worth it. The yogi is the most patient and persevering individual in the world, and their amazing achievements largely stem from these qualities. We can all work to acquire these virtues. Chapter 14. Phenomena of rhythmic breathing. Except for instructions on rhythmic breathing, most exercises we've seen so far are related to the physical plane. However, it's important to remember that their true purpose in Eastern culture is to provide a substantial foundation for the psychic and spiritual planes. These two planes should not be completely separated, as a healthy body is an essential condition for a healthy mind. The body is the temple of the principle of individuation, the lamp in which the light of the spirit shines. Neglecting either of these planes is an error that must be corrected promptly, as it always leads to very negative consequences. We will now delve into the psychic aspect of yogic science and breathing, explaining a series of corresponding exercises. Each exercise in rhythmic breathing is accompanied by the recommendation to direct thought towards the desired goal. This mental attitude is essential for achieving set goals. We won't delve deeply into the subject of the power of will in this work, but it's worth noting that, for the East, the main obstacle to achieving a goal lies in the hindrances of the mind itself, not in physical or contextual difficulties. General instructions for psychic breathing. The foundation of psychic breathing is rhythmic breathing. To avoid unnecessary repetitions in the following pages, we will simply tell you how to breathe rhythmically and add the instruction regarding the power of will, directed and operating in harmony with the vibrations of rhythmic breathing. Shortly after practicing this exercise, you will notice that counting is no longer necessary after the first rhythmic breath, as your mind will have grasped the concept of time and rhythm, and you will be able to breathe automatically in this way. Then, your mind will be clear for the projection of psychic vibrations under the direction of will. Distribution of prana. Lying on the floor or on a mat, muscles relaxed, hands at the level of the solar plexus where the ribs begin to part. Breathe rhythmically. Then, focus on each inhalation, extracting more prana or life energy from the universal deposit, which is received by the nervous system and stored in the solar plexus. With each inhalation, concentrate on distributing prana throughout the body, reaching the organs, muscles, nerves, arteries, veins, cells, and atoms from head to toe to invigorate and stimulate the nervous system and the organism. Pain relief. Lying down or sitting upright, breathe rhythmically while envisioning inhalation and storage of prana. After several breaths and having stored sufficient prana in the solar plexus, send it to the painful area to restore blood circulation and nerve current strength. Inhale more prana to dispel the painful sensation, and on exhaling, hold the prana in the painful area. Restoration of circulation. Lying down or sitting upright, breathe rhythmically. With exhalations, direct circulation to the part you wish to reactivate or revitalize. This breathing exercise is foolproof for cold feet and headaches. These psychic exercises must be practiced with attention and perseverance, focusing on the mental goal. They are essential for developing the psychic dimension of yogic science. In the first case, blood directed towards the feet warms them, while in the second, the excessive pressure weighing on the brain is relieved. It's easy to feel the sensation of warmth in the legs as the blood descends, which is useful to demonstrate that circulation can be, at least in part, controlled and directed by will. Self-healing. Lying down with relaxed muscles, breathe rhythmically and focus on inhaling and storing a large amount of prana. Then, send it to the affected area with the aim of stimulating it. With exhalations, direct it in the desired direction while focusing on relieving pain or illness. During this exercise, pass your hands over the body, starting from the head to the affected area. Throughout the movement, maintain the mental image that prana flows along your arms and enters the body to heal the afflicted part. In practice, only general instructions are possible in this book. However, with training, this exercise can be slightly adapted to specific conditions of an illness, yielding extraordinary results. Another way to perform this exercise is to place both hands on the affected area and perform rhythmic breathing while visualizing prana replacing the illness, as if you were pumping out dirty water to replace it with clean water. Healing others. Here we provide clear and simple instructions that can empower you to heal others. The essential principle to remember is that through rhythmic breathing and creating mental images, a considerable amount of prana can be absorbed and transmitted to another person's body, thereby stimulating weakened organs to eliminate disease and restore health. Mastering the mental image generation of prana flowing along the arms and fingers to the patient's body is crucial. With a perfectly established breathing rhythm, place your hands on the patient's body, lightly resting them on the affected area. Then follow the pumping process described in the previous exercise, filling the patient with prana and mentally visualizing the disease being eliminated. At regular intervals, lift your hands and shake your fingers as if you're removing the illness. After completing the treatment, it's essential to wash your hands thoroughly and practice purifying breathing several times, as without this precaution, you could contract the patient's illness. It's preferable to place hands directly on bare skin, but when impractical or not possible, place them on clothing. At regular intervals, you can gently tap the treated body with slightly spaced fingertips. In chronic cases, mental commands can be expressed verbally, although this should be used exceptionally and never by beginners. Here we outline general principles that can be applied in 100 different ways, provided the operator is aware that it's not their own power accomplishing the healing, but the universal power residing within them. You can vary and be creative in applying these general principles. Distance healing. Prana can be projected to absent persons who wish to receive it. This is the secret of distance healing that has been widely discussed in recent years in the Western world. The healer's thought emits prana and projects it until it reaches the patient's psychic organism. To perform distance healing, form a mental image of the patient until you feel in contact with them. Once the mental connection is established, inform them that prana will be sent to alleviate their pain and illness. Then imagine prana leaving your mind with each exhalation of rhythmic breathing and instantly reaching the patient to heal them. Setting a specific time for treatment is unnecessary. While not counterproductive to do so, the patient's receptive state, whether they are aware or unaware of the ongoing distance healing, puts them in a position to receive vibrations transmitted at any time by the operator. The thought of the person performing the healing emits and modifies their prana, which swiftly travels through space like lightning to lodge itself in the patient's psychic mechanism. It is invisible, and like Marconi's waves, traverses obstacles imposed upon it to find the designated person to receive it. To heal people at a distance, you must form a mental image of them until you feel a harmonious communication with them. It's a psychic process subordinate to the magnetic power of the healer. You can tell when harmony is established, as it manifests as a sensation of synchronicity. We have described all of this as clearly as possible. This ability can be acquired with a little practice, and some achieve it on their first attempt. Once harmonious communication is established, mentally tell the patient, "I am sending you a supply of life force and power that will strengthen and heal you." Then, imagine prana leaving your mind with each exhalation of rhythmic breathing, instantly traveling through space, reaching the patient and healing them. It's unnecessary to set specific hours for treatment, although you may do so if you wish. Since the patient is in a receptive state and awaiting the psychic force that will be sent to them, they will receive the transmitted vibrations at any time the operator sends them. If fixed schedules are established, the patient must adopt an attitude of receptivity and surrender. The above is the grand principle upon which distant treatment in the Western world is based. With a little practice, you can achieve these things just like the most renowned magnetizers. Chapter 15. Some other phenomena of the yogi's psychic respiration. Thought projection. It is possible to project thought using the method already mentioned for distant healing. The targeted person will feel the effect of the thought transmitted in this way. However, it's essential to remember that malicious thoughts can never harm others, because positive thoughts are always positive for the bad, and bad thoughts are always negative for the good. Nonetheless, you can still pique the interest and attention of another person by sending them thought waves charged with prana and pure intentions. However, never attempt to influence others to harm them, or for impure or selfish motives, as such thoughts are repelled with double force back to the sender, harming them without affecting the innocent person targeted in any way. Psychic force is good when used for positive purposes, but beware of black magic and improper, perverse uses, as this would be akin to playing with a dynamo, and anyone acting thus would certainly receive punishment resulting from their own act. However, no malevolent person can attain a high level of psychic power. A pure heart and mind form an invincible protection against misdirected psychic powers. If we remain pure, nothing can harm us. Aura formation. To protect oneself from harmful influences of malevolent people, it's advisable to breathe rhythmically several times to accumulate prana, then use the method of mental imaging to project an aura of prana that will shield you from disruptive influences of others. Self-revitalization. To quickly revitalize your organism, stand with feet firmly straight and hands clenched to prevent prana leakage through the extremities. Breathe rhythmically a few times, and you will immediately feel revitalized. Revitalizing others. To revitalize someone, sit facing them, with feet and hands in mutual contact. Then, both breathe rhythmically, forming the mental image of sending prana into the other's body, while the patient forms the mental image of receiving it. Revitalizing someone doesn't deplete the revitalizer's quantity or quality of prana. Individuals with low vitality or passive should be cautious about whom they perform this exercise on, as a malicious person's prana can be altered by that person's thoughts and can temporarily influence the weaker individual. However, this influence can be easily avoided by closing the circuit in the previously described manner, then breathing rhythmically for a while, concluding with purifying breaths. Charging water with prana. Water can be charged with prana using rhythmic breathing. Hold a glass of water by its base in one hand and gently stir the water with the fingertips of the other hand, as if dropping drops from the tips of your fingers. During this process, mentally project the image of transferring prana into the water. Water charged in this way is an excellent stimulant for weak or sick individuals, especially if accompanied by a thought of health during prana transfer. However, the warning given in the previous exercise applies here as well. Although the danger is much less, it still exists. To minimize these risks, mental and moral faculties must be developed. You can educate and cultivate mental and moral qualities through exercise of the will. If during rhythmic breathing you maintain the mental image of what you desire, it can help you maintain your balance. Self-control, increased power, etc. All of this can be educated in this way, and defects can be eliminated by cultivating their opposite. For the education and development of mental and moral qualities, the following general exercise is recommended. Sitting or standing, represent the qualities you wish to cultivate. Then, breathe rhythmically while holding firmly to the mental image as much as possible, imagining concrete actions in accordance with the ideal you have in mind. In a short time, you will observe gradual and natural growth towards this ideal. To acquire physical qualities, the same methods used to develop mental and moral qualities can be applied. Of course, a man of short stature cannot significantly increase his height, nor is it possible to restore an amputated limb or achieve other similar miracles. However, it is possible to greatly improve facial expression and overall physical characteristics. Many changes, especially those related to facial expression, are actually the result of mental or moral changes, as the expression of a wise person differs from that of a fool. Similarly, the posture of someone aware of the harmonious laws of the universe differs from that of an ignorant person. To strengthen a part of the body, focus your attention on that part and breathe rhythmically, maintaining the mental image of sending a greater amount of prana or nervous energy to that area to increase its vitality. This method can be applied with equal effectiveness to any part of the body you wish to strengthen. To master and control negative emotions such as fear, sadness, hatred, etc., these emotions are under the control of the will. They can be subdued and controlled by the will, connecting to the transcendent vitality of prana. To overcome negative emotions, breathe rhythmically while focusing your attention on the solar plexus. Then, mentally forge the image that negative emotions dissipate on the exhale. Repeat this exercise 7 times, ending with purifying breaths, and you will immediately achieve serenity. Breathe rhythmically, focusing on the solar plexus and mentally transmitting the command of health to it. Give this command mentally with fervor on the exhale, then forge the mental image that unpleasant emotions are expelled, with the breath over 7 cycles, ending with purifying breaths. You will notice how much better you feel. The command must be given with fervor, as coldness will have no effect. Transmitting reproductive energy. Yogis possess great knowledge of the use and misuse of the reproductive principle in both sexes. Some parts of this esoteric knowledge have been disseminated and used by Western writers, thus doing much good. In this brief book, we can only touch on the subject, skipping many details and contenting ourselves with a brief mention of the theory. We will provide a practical breathing exercise through which the student can transmute reproductive energy into vitality for the whole organism, rather than dissipating or wasting it in luxuriant excess, whether within or outside marital duties. Reproductive energy is a creative energy that can be used to strengthen the system and transmuted into strength and vitality, serving regeneration rather than degeneration. If the youth of the Western world understood these principles, it would spare much future misery and hardship, and be stronger mentally, morally, and physically. This transmutation of reproductive energy brings great vitality to those who practice it. They will be filled with a vital force that radiates within them and manifests in them, what has been called personal magnetism. The energy thus transmuted can be used for other purposes with great profit. Nature has concentrated one of its most powerful manifestations of prana in reproductive energy, as its purpose is to create a considerable sum of vital force. This energy is concentrated in a small area. The reproductive organs are the most powerful battery accumulated in animal life. One can use their force as much as they can expend it in the ordinary functions of reproduction, or waste it. For most of our students, this constitutes an introduction to the theories of regeneration, and we have exposed the facts sufficiently without seeking to prove them. The yogi exercise for transmuting reproductive energy is very simple. It is associated with rhythmic breathing and can be easily practiced, preferably when feeling the most intense sexual desire, as this is when reproductive force is most active and can be transmuted for regeneration purposes. The exercise is as follows. Keep the mind focused on the idea of energy, steering away from common sensual images or thoughts. If such thoughts come to mind, do not be discouraged, but consider them manifestations of a force you are trying to use to strengthen the body and mind. Standing or sitting with a straight back, focus on the idea of directing reproductive energy to the solar plexus, where it will be transmuted and accumulated as a regenerative force of vitality. Then, breathe rhythmically while imagining that with each inhalation, reproductive energy rises. With each exhalation, mentally direct this energy from the reproductive organs to the solar plexus. If you establish the rhythm perfectly and the mental image is clear, you will feel the energy rising and its stimulating effect. If you wish to enhance your mental strength, you can direct the energy to the brain instead of the solar plexus. To do this, mentally command the energy to rise to the brain with each inhalation. The man or woman who performs creative works, whether mental or physical, can use this reproductive energy in their work by practicing the previous exercise, directing energy upward on inhalation and where needed on exhalation. In this latter exercise, only the amount necessary for the work will pass. The rest will remain stored in the solar plexus. Naturally, you will understand that it is not the reproductive fluids directed upwards and used, but the etheric pranic energy that animates them. That is the soul of the reproductive organ. It is customary to slightly tilt the head forward naturally and effortlessly during the exercise of transmutation. To stimulate the brain, yogis have found a very useful exercise. It promotes brain activity, clarity of thought and reflection. Its effect is astonishing for clarifying ideas and toning the nervous system. Those engaged in mental work will find this exercise highly beneficial for enhancing their work and providing a means to refresh and clear their mind after strenuous mental effort. Sit in an upright position, spine straight, eyes gazing forward, and hands resting on the tops of your thighs. Breathe rhythmically, but instead of using both nostrils as in previous exercises, press the thumb of your left hand against the left side of your nose and inhale through the right nostril. Remove the thumb to close the right nostril with the index finger of the same hand and exhale through the left nostril. Then, without removing the finger from the right side, inhale through the left nostril and return the fingers to the initial position, exhaling through the right. Continue alternating between the two nostrils, inhaling through one and exhaling through the other, and vice versa. Always keep the other nostril closed during the process. This technique represents one of the oldest forms of yogic breathing, and due to its importance and value, it is essential to master it. It's amusing to note that for many Western readers, this method is often presented as the complete secret of yogic breathing. In the minds of many Westerners, yogic breathing boils down to the image of a Hindu sitting upright, alternating breathing between nostrils, but it is nothing more than that. We hope this brief explanation will open the eyes of the Western world to the vast horizons of yogic breathing and the many applications for which it can be used. The great yogic psychic breathing is a preferred form of psychic breathing practiced by yogis from time to time. They have given it a name in Sanskrit, the general equivalent of which serves as the epigraph to this book. We deliberately left this exercise for the end, assuming the student has already mastered rhythmic breathing and mental imaging, which you have undoubtedly acquired by reading these lines. The general principles of the great breathing can be summarized by the ancient Hindu proverb, "Blessed is the yogi who can breathe through his bones." This exercise will fill your entire system with prana. After conscientiously practicing it, you will feel as if you have a freshly created body from head to toe. To practice this exercise, lie down in a comfortable and relaxed position. Breathe rhythmically until the rhythm is well established. Next, inhale and exhale while forming the mental image that the breath is directed through the bones of your legs and expelled through them, then through the bones of your arms. Then direct the breath through the crown of your head, then through your stomach and reproductive organs. Finally, imagine the breath traveling up and down your spine and moving throughout your entire body, even passing through every pore of the skin, filling it with prana and life. After this, proceed by sending the flow of prana through the 7 vital centers in the given order and using mental images as in previous exercises. End with purifying breaths. Chapter 16. Spiritual Breathing. Eastern philosophy teaches us that man will develop his latent abilities as humanity progresses, and through proper efforts of the will, each individual can contribute to the development of their spiritual faculties by evolving as an individual much faster than in the ordinary process of evolution. In other words, man can develop faculties of consciousness that will not become the common property of humanity until many centuries of gradual evolution according to the law of evolution. For the development of these spiritual faculties, rhythmic breathing plays an extremely important role. Breathing in itself has no mystical virtue, despite its astonishing results. But the rhythm produced by proper breathing is such that it puts the entire organism, including the brain, in perfect harmony, thereby creating the most appropriate conditions for the development of latent faculties. The objective of this book is not to delve deeply into Eastern philosophy regarding spiritual development, as that would require several volumes. Nevertheless, in this chapter, we will provide instructions for developing 2 aspects of spiritual consciousness, namely, 1. The consciousness of the soul's identity. 2. The consciousness of the soul's relationship with universal life. The 2 exercises we describe are simple and involve creating mental images while practicing rhythmic breathing. It is essential to progress slowly and patiently, seeking to grow like a flower from seed to rose. However, beyond the slowness of our progress, we can be sure that when the time comes to make a leap forward, a path will open for us. As the saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Soul consciousness. The true self is neither the body nor the mind of man. The true self is the ego, the principle of individualization. The true self is independent of the body it inhabits and does not depend on the mind. The true self is a drop of the divine ocean, eternal and indestructible. It cannot die, for it is the soul. Each of us is our soul. The body can be discarded, but we are not the body. We are what discards the body. The following exercise is the simplest way to meditate on the nature of what we truly are. Lie down without muscular tension, breathe rhythmically and meditate on the true self, remembering that you are an entity independent of the body. Although it inhabits the body, meditate on the fact that the body is an instrument, and as such, it is only used when necessary. During meditation, the existence of the body must be forgotten, so that at an advanced stage of practicing the exercise, there is no longer consciousness of the physical body. At this stage, the notion of immortality will frequently arise, and the individual will begin to show signs of spiritual progress, noticeable both to themselves and to their surroundings. However, it is also not recommended to immerse excessively in spiritual life at the expense of the body, for man is on earth to accomplish a mission and needs his body for that purpose. It would be a grave mistake to waste the opportunity to acquire the necessary experiences for one's own perfection, or to disrespect one's own body, which is the temple of the spirit. Universal consciousness. The mind of man is the higher manifestation of his soul. Although it appears to be a separate and distinct drop, it is actually in contact with the ocean of spirit and with all other drops. When man develops his spiritual abilities, he becomes increasingly aware of his relationship with the universal spirit. Eastern sages achieve this state of universal consciousness through meditation combined with rhythmic breathing. However, detailed instructions regarding this type of higher meditation are not necessary at this time. First, you must learn and master perfectly all the techniques described in this book. Secondly, these are flexible exercises, and each individual must discover and practice them alone. Nevertheless, we will provide below the basic steps for developing universal consciousness. With perseverance, each person will seek to find their own path to progress, as the way is always open to those who wish to follow it. The body should be in a lying position, relaxed without muscular tension. Practice rhythmic breathing until it becomes natural and unconscious. Then meditate on the existence of individuality as a drop in the ocean of universal consciousness that animates and supports everything. Mentally create the image of a tide being moved by forces much greater than itself with each exhalation and inhalation. Try to participate in these forces that reside in every soul. These meditation exercises leave those who practice them with a feeling of upliftment and spiritual bliss. They must be practiced with respect and reverence, never in haste or at times when other concerns require proper concentration. General instructions for practicing higher exercises. The exercises described in this chapter immerse us in the mysteries of life and require a mental attitude of respect and spirituality. These matters should not be treated lightly, as no benefit will be derived, and it could be harmful. These exercises are intended for a small number of people who are ready to understand them. During meditation, one should focus on the ideas presented in the exercise until they become the manifestation of real consciousness within you. These exercises should not be practiced too frequently, and the bliss attained should not lead to disdain or neglect of daily life, for daily life is also the manifestation of higher spiritual practices, and everything has its appointed place. You will discover the necessary steps as you are ready to continue your spiritual ascent. Continue your journey looking towards the east where the sun rises towards wisdom. May peace be with you and with all manifestations of the real.